going on a flight anytime soon. This video might make you change your mind. This is Airplanes Gone Wrong. On February 11th, a passenger bus and an American Airlines plane collided. The plane was being towed to the parking area of LAX when the slow-speed collision happened near the south side of the terminal around 10 p.m. This resulted in 4 people needing to be hospitalized and injuring one, but they are all said to be in moderate condition. The 5 people injured in this collision were the driver, 2 passengers, the tug driver, and another LAX worker. The airport took to Twitter saying, "A jet being towed tonight from a gate to a parking area made contact with a shuttle bus, resulting in injuries to about 5 people. We thank our partners at LAFD for quickly responding and treating passengers from the bus. Other LAX operations remain normal." There's even some footage that shows the driver being wheeled toward an ambulance with a head wound wrapped up. Let's take a look at it. There was reportedly a lot of damage to the underside of the plane right under the nose because of the collision, and another video shows the front windows of the bus with deep cracks. How scared would you be in this situation? Let me know in the comments. In mid-January, another situation occurred involving the American Airlines planes. This situation is a bit different than the first one though. The American Airline and Boeing 737 planes narrowly avoided slamming into each other with speeds of 115 miles per hour during takeoff at the JFK airport. The Boeing 737 was traveling at 115 miles per hour down a runway at the New York airport around 8:45 p.m. when an air traffic controller noticed that the American Airlines flight to the UK had suddenly crossed from an adjacent runway right in front of the departing plane. The 737 pilot was then forced to abruptly brake, traveling another 661 feet before he came to a complete stop with just 1,000 feet to spare before the planes would have crashed into one another. It was then forced to return to the gate and didn't take off again until the next morning, while the American Airlines flight arrived in the UK as planned.
Grand American 106 Heavy, Tango Alpha for taxi.
106 Heavy, Kennedy ground, next 4 left, taxi left, Bravo, hold short kilo.
Bravo 30 Kilo American 106.
Delta 1943, wind 35018, gust 24, runway 4 left, clear for takeoff.
Alright, clear for takeoff, runway 4 left, Delta 1943.
American 106 Heavy, cross runway 31 left at kilo.
Cross 31 left, 106 Heavy.
American 106 Heavy, American 106 Heavy, hold position. American 106 Heavy, hold position.
Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance. Delta 1943, cancel takeoff clearance.
Rejecting. Alright, then, Delta 1943.
Yeah, Delta 1943, are you able to taxi or need a couple minutes to run checks?
Yeah, we can get up the runway, Delta 1943.
Delta 1943, turn left, Juliet, and just remain clear of runway 4 left.
Left on Juliet, and remain clear, runway 4 left for Delta 1943.
Delta 1943, same intentions.
Yeah, we're going to have to go somewhere, run a couple of checklists, and probably make some phone call for Delta 1943.
Delta 1943, taxi right on Bravo, hold short of Hotel Bravo.
Right on Bravo, Hotel Bravo, Delta 1943.
American 106 Heavy. American 106 Heavy, possible pilot deviation. I have a number for you. Advise ready to copy.
Ready to copy. Go ahead, sir.
American 106 Heavy, stand by.
Tower American 106 Heavy.
American 106 Heavy.
The last clearance we were given, we were cleared to cross. Is that correct?
American 106 Heavy, we're departing runway 4 left. I guess we'll listen to the tapes, but you were supposed to depart runway 4 left. You're currently holding short of 31 left.
Roger, American 106 Heavy.
Surprisingly, the 737 pilot remained calm and collected despite nearly colliding nose first into the side of the other plane. Don't know how he did it, but I would have for sure not been able to. In early February, another close call collision occurred at the Austin Bergstrom International Airport. A Boeing 767 FedEx cargo plane who was trying to land had come within 100 feet of a Southwest Airlines 737 airplane that had been trying to take off from the same runway. Some say the only thing that saved these two from actually colliding was the quick thinking of the pilot flying the FedEx plane. The FedEx flight was several miles from the airport when it was advised to land. But as it was touching down, an air traffic controller had also given the go-ahead for the Southwest Boeing 737 to take off.
Flight heading 170, runway 18 left, clear for takeoff, traffic 3 mile final is a heavy 767.
Okay, 170, cleared for takeoff, 18 left, copy the traffic, Southwest 708.
Tower, confirm FedEx 1432 Heavy, cleared to land on 18 left.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, that is affirmative, sir. 18 left, you are clear to land, traffic departure, route to 737.
Roger.
Southwest 708, confirm on the road.
Rolling now.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
Southwest 708, roger, you turn right when able. Negative.
Obviously, they weren't paying attention to the runways because then this wouldn't have happened. After coming within 100 feet of each other, each plane had safely arrived at their designated locations. On February 10th, a Delta Airlines flight from Edinburgh bound for JFK was forced to make an emergency landing shortly after taking off after flames were spotted shooting out from underneath one of the wings. Videos have been surfacing the internet from passengers who caught the flame mid-flight. Some say it's possibly from an engine surge, but who knows? The flight had departed at around 10:50 a.m., bound for New York from Scotland, but after just half an hour around 11:30 a.m., the plane was back on the ground at Glasgow Airport due to the spotted flame. Imagine they never saw the fire and the plane didn't land as soon as it could. What kinds of damage could it have done? Many of the passengers had feared for their lives during the short trip, but honestly, who wouldn't? A passenger on the plane explained that there had been an announcement of the emergency landing at Glasgow Prestwick, and then the noise cut to nothing, almost as if the engine had cut off, and then people started gasping. The captain was reportedly walking up and down the flight, making the passengers question the seriousness of the landing, but once they landed, everyone clapped and whistled. I can't even imagine what they were thinking within those minutes leading up to the emergency landing. It was said that a reporter for BBC Scotland named Laura Pettigrew happened to be on the plane, and she gave a statement about what happened. She stated, "The plane took off and there was a loud engine noise, similar to the noise normally during takeoff and landing, but it seemed to continue once we were in the air. The captain walked up the length of the plane and then there was an announcement, although no one could hear it. When the plane touched down, we could see fire trucks and firefighters with hoses rushing towards us. We were told to leave all our belongings and get off as quickly as we could. There was no real panic among passengers, more just confusion. However, some families with kids were pretty distressed. She continued. The pilots seemed to do a smooth job of getting us down safely. Apparently, the cabin crew were preparing for a crash landing. Fire engines met the aircraft on the runway, and the issue was described as a mechanical fault. The Scottish Fire and Rescue Service had also released a statement that said, "We were requested at 11:23 a.m. on Friday, February 10th, to assist our fire service partners at Prestwick Airport. Operations Control mobilized 4 appliances to the site, where firefighters remain working to support their partners." In addition to statements, the airline also released one saying, Delta Flight 209 from Edinburgh to New York JFK safely diverted to Prestwick, Glasgow after a mechanical issue with the aircraft. We apologize to our customers for this inconvenience and are working to get them to their final destination as quickly as possible. The Texas authorities have detained a student from Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh following the hoax bomb threat on board American Airlines Flight 2051 on February 17th. The juvenile admitted to sending the airdrop message minutes before taking off from the El Paso International Airport. American Airlines Flight 2051, bound for Chicago O'Hare International Airport from El Paso, had to return to a safe airport area minutes before entering the runway for takeoff. Passengers with Apple devices received the threat message via the AirDrop feature. The AirDrop feature allows file sharing to anyone with an Apple device within a specific range while the feature is turned on. The message received by the onboard passengers read, "I have a bomb and would like to share a photo." After reports of the message got out, the aircraft diverted off the apron and returned to a safe area before the authorities investigated the matter. The Texas Department of Public Safety deemed the threat non-credible after screening the aircraft, passengers, and luggage for explosives. The authorities cleared the aircraft hours after the incident as there was no credible threat to the aircraft or the passengers. On January 20th, a single-engine Beechcraft A-36 took off from New York's JFK International Airport around 5 p.m., heading for Cuyahoga County Airport in Richmond Heights, Ohio. This was supposed to be a peaceful flight, but soon after takeoff it turned into chaos. The plane had been experiencing engine trouble, and it was even reported that the pilot had said something to air traffic controllers about low oil pressure. The pilot tried to make an emergency landing at Westchester County Airport in White Plains, which was about 40 miles north of JFK. I'll just say this, the plan did not go as expected. The plane began losing altitude, and the pilot realized that he had only a handful of minutes to try and bring the plane to a safe landing. The small plane crashed near a suburban New York airport, killing the pilot, 40-year-old Borak Taub, and his passenger, 45-year-old Benjamin Chaffetz, both from the Cleveland area. Hundreds of police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical workers from multiple agencies searched for the plane, but their efforts were hampered by heavy rain. Westchester County Emergency Services Commissioner Richard Wishney stated that the weather was impossible, and they couldn't use the drones that they normally would be due to the rain. Officials had to reach out to the FBI, which brought special equipment that could ping their cell phones. The wreckage was found just before 11 p.m. in a heavily wooded area about 2 miles from the runway at Westchester County Airport. The victims' remains were found near the downed plane. Moments before the crash, it was said that Chaffetz was able to communicate with his wife to say his goodbyes. Wow, just 2 miles away from the safe landing. That's just terrible. Days before Christmas, a plane departed the Kahului Airport in Maui, Hawaii, almost plummeting nose first into the ocean. On December 18th, United Airlines flight from Hawaii to San Francisco plummeted into the air and came within just 775 feet of the Pacific Ocean in a terrifying incident. Just 71 seconds after takeoff from the airport, flight UA-1722 reached 2,200 feet, then suddenly started to nosedive for at least 45 seconds until the plane was able to stabilize. Man, how scary would that be? Social media appeared to be quiet about the incident, with the air current pointing out that on the same day, 25 people were injured during severe turbulence on a Hawaiian Airlines flight from Phoenix to Honolulu. The same storm system that caused heavy rain in Maui at the time of the flights also sparked a massive bomb cyclone snowstorm across parts of the United States, which grounded flights, triggering the Southwest Airlines chaos just before Christmas. The December flight took off from Kahului Airport at 2:29 p.m. despite the stormy weather reported at the time. It was in between radio calls with air traffic controllers in Maui throughout the 45-second dive. The climb produced forces of nearly 2.7 times the force of gravity on the aircraft and its occupants. G-force, which is used to describe the acceleration of an object relative to Earth's gravity, can be dangerous depending on several factors, including direction. An upwards acceleration of about 5 g is enough to overwhelm the ability of your heart to pump blood to your brain, which causes oxygen starvation, and you will black out within a few seconds. But a downward or negative g-force is even worse. Expert Luis Villazon told Science Focus, "The blood pools in your head, your face swells up, and your lower eyelids are forced over your eyes. This is called red out because all you see is the light shining through your eyelids. At negative 3 g, the blood can't get back to your lungs to reoxygenate, so you pass out. However, brain cells are resilient, and it would take around 4 to 6 minutes of oxygen deprivation for any cells to die completely." The report about December's incident, which analyzed available data, revealed that the flight reached 2,200 feet before suddenly diving nearly 8,600 feet per minute, or 143 feet per second. Man, that's fast. The incident lasted only 45 seconds before the aircraft recovered and landed safely in San Francisco. 2 hours later, it departed onto its next flight to Chicago. A spokesperson for United has explained that a formal report was filed. The aircraft was inspected before its next flight, and that the incident led to the pilots, who have fully cooperated with the investigation, receiving additional training with a combined 25,000 hours of flying time. On March 2nd, 7 people had been hospitalized after a Lufthansa Airlines flight from Austin to Frankfurt made an emergency landing in Washington, D.C. The plane had been struck by lightning and plummeted nearly 1,000 feet while the no seatbelt sign was turned off. Terrified passengers were surrounded by a lot of broken glass and left screaming in terror after the Lufthansa Flight 469 had hit a traumatic wave of turbulence at 37,000 feet while flying over Tennessee. I'd be terrified too if I were a passenger. That's a long distance to plummet, especially in an airplane. The flight landed at Washington Dulles International Airport around 9 p.m., just 3 hours into the 10.5-hour flight to Germany. The 7 passengers injured during this landing were said to have had unknown injuries. One man, who claimed his wife was on the flight, said the people who didn't have seatbelts fastened got hurt the most because it came as a surprise after the plane was struck. A photo the man's wife sent him showed food trays, containers, silverware, and pamphlets scattered all along the aisle after landing. A passenger sitting in the row in front of them was said to have been wheeled off the plane in a wheelchair after being badly hurt and was heavily bleeding. A passenger who spoke anonymously with the Washington Post said that food went flying into the air, hitting and even damaging the ceiling of the plane. Another person whose sister and brother-in-law were on the flight said it was exceptionally scary, especially since there were a lot of people screaming and there was a lot of broken glass everywhere. The airline has offered passengers a refund after an angry passenger by the name of Ashley took to Twitter saying, "Lufthansa, we would like to get immediate help and compensation for the catastrophic forced landing incident involving LH-469. Many of our plans have been affected, our clothes are ruined, and we definitely expect far more than just a hotel tonight. Reply ASAP." However, there was a passenger that actually thanked the crew for taking care of the passengers during the scary encounter and wrote on Twitter, "Lufthansa, thank you so much for your incredible care of Flight 469 tonight. My family will be eternally grateful for the skill of the pilot and co-pilot and care from the crew." On February 22nd, An American Airlines flight was forced to make an emergency landing at Raleigh-Durham International Airport after a passenger became unruly and disruptive. The passenger, 36-year-old Tiffany Michelle Miles, was said to have become irate when her drink hadn't been served to her. Things then started to escalate when the flight attendants tried to calm the woman down. In radio transmission from Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority Police, law enforcement said the woman then actually tried to breach the cockpit before the crew and passengers restrained her. The airport stated, at approximately 3:41 p.m., Flight AA-3444 departing Jacksonville to Washington, D.C., diverted to RDU due to a disruptive passenger. Upon landing, the plane was directed to Gate C9 where law enforcement boarded the aircraft and took the suspect into custody. She was charged with airport obstruction but was released shortly after being taken into custody after paying her bond. On March 1st, 10 people were hospitalized after a Spirit Airlines plane bound for Orlando, Florida made an emergency landing in Jacksonville due to a fire on board. How did this happen exactly? Well, I'll tell you, but first, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Spirit Airlines Flight 259 landed at Jacksonville International Airport around 2 p.m. after the crew reported that there had been a battery that caught on fire in an overhead bin. The plane landed without incident and pulled up to the terminal before fire rescue teams went aboard the flight. When emergency responders were able to board the plane, they had discovered that the fire in the overhead compartment had been caused by a lithium-ion battery. Before landing, the flight crew on the plane had been able to put out the fire, but there was still smoke in the cockpit. Jacksonville Fire Rescue Captain Eric Proswimmer mentioned, "The battery, I don't know where it came from, but it had started a fire. The crew was intelligent. They put a galley in a bucket of water. Surprisingly, there was actually a retired fireman on board and he was able to help the flight crew put out the fire before they landed. I wonder what would have happened if he wasn't there to help. Would they have been able to put it out as quickly?" Shortly after landing, though, one passenger wasn't feeling well. They were examined by rescue teams before being transferred to the hospital. Breathing in something like lithium ion is not something you want to do. When the passenger inhaled it, it not only causes them to have really high toxicity levels inside their body, but it has side effects as well that no one wants to deal with, such as vomiting, fatigue, and stomach pain. At around 6 p.m., more crew members and passengers began to feel ill, and fire and rescue teams ended up transporting a total of 10 patients, all with non-life-threatening conditions, to the hospital. What do you think about all of these situations? Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.